It is a betrayal of faith to stay silent in the presence of tyranny. Alright, what are we ranting about today, Chuckles? Well, there's at least two of you out there that express that you like these little conversations I like to have with myself while I'm stuck in traffic, where it's just me and my thoughts. And I've been watching just a lot of news lately, and I'm having a good time with the reaction to the culture war, with the different boycotts that they're having with Bud Light, Target, Disney. Oh man, watching Disney go up in smoke. Do you guys remember I told you I didn't know much about this ESG stuff, and I thought that it was the reason why all of these companies are pushing all this woke ideology in the presence of what appears to be losing strategy, meaning like no matter how much they're boycotted, no matter how much money they lose, they seem to double down. You know, Disney has apparently lost billions. Like, nobody's watching any of their shows, and yet they're still hammering this message because they get most of their funding through ESG, environmental social governance. And what I've done a lot of research, so there's a couple of notable, what do you say, like not hedge fund managers, but managers of money, BlackRock being the biggest one. Trillions of dollars in assets. Essentially, the way these companies are getting funding is through these ESG scores, and a lot of people, through their mutual funds, through their retirement plans, through just simple everyday investing, we have become unwitting players in ESG because all of our money is going to these funds, which are then, I'm not really a financial guy, and I don't really know how to articulate this stuff very well. But basically, you're giving your money to investors. Investors are wrapping them up in these hedge funds. And these hedge funds, the larger asset management is going to these huge conglomerates like BlackRock. Anyways, these huge money management firms. And they're dictating how companies are able to get their money. So companies are incentivized to push an environmental, a social message. And if they get a bad score, if their score goes down, like say they don't endorse trans, whatever, they did the Dylan Mulvaney thing, and Budweiser put his face on the can, and then in the backlash, they didn't apologize to the consumers, and they didn't really take a stance. They just sort of backed off and tried to let things play out, right? And because of that, their score went down. So this ESG scoring system came after them and told them, well, since you didn't say anything, your score is going down, and that's how they lose their money. So it doesn't seem to matter. It really just doesn't seem to matter whether or not we buy their products or not, because it's all a bullshit Ponzi scheme. How these companies are getting funding doesn't seem to matter what we consume. They don't seem to give a shit if we buy their products or not. It's like, I guess, the value of the dollar is directly tied to the amount of debt the country has. So all these years where you hear, oh, we're in debt, we can no longer, we're deeper and deeper in debt, and the dollar is going to go, we're going to lose the value of the dollar. No, the value of the dollar is directly associated with the amount of debt we're in. I've been doing like backroom economics classes, trying to teach myself this stuff, and I was shocked to learn that it's fear mongering. They're trying to get you to think the amount of debt that we're going in is causing inflation. It's going to cause the devaluation of the dollar, when in fact the dollar's directly, if we paid off the debt to zero, that is when the dollar has no value anymore. So wrap your head around this. Like, I know there's an economist out there that knows this stuff way better than I do, that can corroborate what I'm saying. I didn't make this up. I wish I could articulate it better. But essentially, these companies are way more afraid of losing ESG score points than they are consumer backlash. But at the same time, there is only so much that they can take. Like, there has to be a product. They have to produce something. And that something has to be consumed by someone. Now they can get all the funding they want, but if we boycott them to the point where they're not moving anything, they will become insolvent and go out of business. And the writing's on the wall with Disney. Now Disney's huge and they have deep pockets, and I don't know how. Like, they just seem very, very adamant about pushing their ideology. They've race swapped every single character. Every single show has something transsexual or homosexual. Like, they're pushing these relationships. Now, for all of you out there that are like, well, you must be transphobic, you must be homophobic. Well, I'm not afraid of anybody. I don't personally care what a consenting adult does in his or her bedroom. What you do with your beloved and your time as a free individual, that's your business and not mine. And that's where it should stay. It really should be a private matter. And it certainly shouldn't be something that I should have to endorse. You know, it's like, I don't need to be against it, but I certainly don't need to be for it. But then we start getting into, like, personal beliefs. Like, well, what about, you're a Christian, what does your religion say? Well, personal beliefs, unfortunately, the good book is pretty clear on what's considered morally acceptable as far as sex is concerned. And we can go into that, I'd be happy to. But from a philosophical or political standpoint, what you do on your free time as a consenting adult, that's completely fine. What I am dead set against, is anyone pushing their ideology on me against my consent. And that would include conservatives. I remember way back in the 80s, you got the, Tipper Gore and the Dukakis era, where they were of censorship, where they were basically trying to censor rock and roll and music. They put the parental advisory stickers on records, and that was actually a way to get that. If you got that sticker on your record, you guarantee you're going to get sales, because that's what we look for. We look for that parental advisory sticker, and that's how we knew it was good music. But there was a time where there was censorship in one form or another. People trying to push their viewpoints and ideology has been around since the dawn of man. It's nothing new. It could be left, it could be right. I don't care. Just so, to put that in perspective, I'm against LGBTQ plus whatever message in school to kids. But I'm also against teaching normal sexual stuff to kids. That's not their job. It's certainly not their job to do it to third graders. Look, if you don't understand the concept of sex, why are you learning about it? School is for learning math, English, and all that stuff. And we're not doing a good job. I don't like the current school system because I believe that our schools are designed to create compliant, complacent factory workers, people that are able to do menial tasks to keep the cog running. Basically, we need worker bees, and that's what our school's designed to produce. Shut up, sit down, do what you're told. And we're not even doing that. As far as I can tell, all the homework that my kids brought home before we put them in our charter school was simply designed to make them proficient at taking standardized tests. And talking to some teachers, standardized test scores, aggregated, is how schools get their funding. So they get their money from the state by how well they do on their test scores. So right off the bat, I'm already against the Department of Education and the way they're teaching our kids in public schools. I don't think it's teaching them to be free thinkers. I think it's teaching them to be compliant factory workers. Wow, now they're using it to indoctrinate children. Now they're using it to push their ideology. You guys want to know something really disturbing? And the reason why I said what I said in the intro of this video, basically, you can't call yourself a Christian and be against something and not do anything about it. It is your duty to speak truth and to speak for the truth and to speak against anything that is not truth. And I'm not talking about your subjective bullshit idea of what truth is. I'm talking about truth. 2 plus 2 is 4. Objective. So, this is kind of my, I guess, way of doing what I can. Because I think the one thing that we all can do, while we still have the freedom to, the most important thing that we can do is when you see something, say something. You know? And that goes with anything. You could be at work, if you see someone doing something unsafe and you think he's going to get hurt, say something. If you see something immoral happen, if you see somebody getting abused or bullied, it's your job to do something about it. You are morally obligated to intervene. Like, say you see someone getting their ass kicked by a couple of guys in the street, and you're looking at these dudes and you're thinking, oh man, if I get involved, I'm going to get my ass kicked. What do? And you're obligated to do something. You are obligated 100% to do something about it. I'm kind of saying that it's your moral duty to stand up for what's right. And if you see somebody getting tuned up, you know that it's wrong. You know what's happening. Like, you see these videos, World Star, where they show these little 1-minute clips of people getting their ass kicked. Everybody's standing around cheering them on. Every last one of those people is going to hell. If you have the time to stand there and film it, you have the time to do something about it. Maybe that means calling the authorities. Maybe that means calling for help. Does it mean you directly jump in and start kung fu fighting with them? I don't know, but you can't just stand there and do nothing. You can't just look away. You are morally obligated to do something. If you hear something that's not true, you are morally obligated to speak against it. The one freedom that sets our country apart is the freedom of speech, while we still have it. And it is the pillar of Western civilization as we know it. Without free speech, we have no freedom. You can't express yourself if you can't speak. So it is our duty. What they're doing is they're directly attacking the language. They're making things meaningless. They're getting rid of objective truth and morality. They're making everything subjective. They're confusing everything. You don't even know what pronouns are. Pronouns, just even saying that. They're purposely destroying the way we communicate with each other. They're getting it to the point where no one knows what to say, or how to say it, or when to say it. And it's like the Tower of Babel all over again, where everybody became confused, and it broke the civilization up because nobody could communicate. The moral of the story of the Tower of Babel was, I think it wasn't necessarily that God was punishing them for, trying to reach the heavens. It's that he originally had told those people to disperse and go out in the world, and they didn't listen to him. So he punished them because they were building a grand civilization, and it was against his wishes. So what did he do? He made it so that nobody could understand each other, and they had to disperse. So it's kind of like what's going on with the left and the right. You ever wonder why the two sides can't debate? Like, why can't a left-wing person and a right-wing person find common ground and have civil discourse? It's because they're speaking different languages, and the meanings of the words are different for each side. So they just can't understand each other. They can't come to an understanding. It's not possible because the words mean different things. I was watching this, it wasn't a podcast, but it was something on YouTube, and it was a speech by one of the, I don't know if he was a priest, but he was a representative of the Church of Satan. Those were those edgy weirdos when I was growing up that just, they were like goth people that thought it was cool, like, hail Satan. Nobody took them seriously. Well, now they've kind of grown. And I listened to this guy speak, and he never brought up the devil once. He didn't bring up Satan at all. What he brought up as the church's ethos, their ideology, their core tenets, was all left-wing talking points. So it sounded like I was at a DNC convention. it's literally like going to a Democratic National Committee convention and listening to them go over their talking points. Mirrored almost identically the Church of Satan's ethos. And I was like blown away. I'm like, wow, the left really is satanic. And most people don't realize it because they have even confused their own side into thinking that they have the moral high ground and that we're just a bunch of bigots that want to restrict the freedom of other people. Let me give you an example. They truly believe, so when we say that we want to ban transitioning kids, they think that we want to take away the choice of the parents and the children to get transitional surgery because it's linked to suicide rates and stuff like that. So they literally, what we're trying to do is protect kids from getting mutilated by these monsters, and they think we're trying to restrict their freedom. So do you understand the language difference? We're not speaking the same language. Both sides, based on that, have good points. And I think that most people, generally speaking, on the left and the right, are probably well-meaning. But unfortunately, almost everything coming from the left is just satanic. It is. It's just satanic. And it's our duty to speak against it. So, I'm still a powerlifting channel. That'll never change. That's the core. That's what I'm here for, baby. Lift heavy things. But I'm also going to let you guys know who I am and what I think. And I think the world's going to hell in a handbasket, and the only chance we have at salvaging it is to speak up. Let me know what you think. As always, I'm open.